Hey, it's Lester Martin with Hortonworks University, and I'm going to walk you through another demonstration as part of our Hadoop Essentials one-day course offering. So as all other demos, I'm maintaining these list of instructions more for the demonstrations purposes right here in GitHub, so definitely take a look. And we're focusing now on this last one on the list, securing Hive with Ranger. So obviously, Ranger can do many things. We're going to focus very succinctly on a couple use cases as you see below in a second. And for this demonstration to work, you'll have to do one of the prior ones, the risk analysis with Pig. And just like all the other demos, I'm pointing you to a few of the tutorials that we have available on hortonworks.com that this demonstration is based upon. So you can run through this. You can definitely run through these other tutorials, and these are much more expansive security tutorials, a lot of other products and other use cases as well. So the use cases we're going to focus on are pretty normal requests one would expect in Hive world. So we're really going to focus on some restrictions. So maybe some table level restrictions. We're going to prevent a group of people in the Department of Marketing to have access to a few of our tables. We'll also do some row level permissioning. Now that's, as you'll see shortly, that's not really an intrinsic part of Hive, but with Ranger, with views and some other things, we have some opportunities to do row level security. Maybe if not, again, as a first class citizen, as a first and a half class citizen. Very straightforward, well used approach. And then follow back and finish up with some straightforward column level permissions. So to get all this done, what we need to do is we do need to kind of set our environment up that we're working on in the sandbox. And the very first thing we want to do is just to help that row level security a little later, to go ahead and create a view that will come in handy shortly. So I'm going to log back in as Maria Dev and navigate over to the Hive view that we have there. And I'm just going to create a view based on the table over here called, oh goodness, geolocation, I guess. So just open that up to see the columns. And really what I'm really thinking about here is I want to create a view. We'll just call it a geo normal event. So maybe from the name you'll start to see what I'm thinking about. And we'll make the view really be the result of select all from the geolocation table itself. And I'm going to just make this only include normal events, as we're calling those in this database. So we'll execute that, make sure that's in place for us. And if it did get done, it's finished. I'll refresh on the right over here and make sure our geo normal event, and I'll just make sure it's returning some results as we expect. There we go. And they're all just normal, as you kind of see here. So that's good news. We need to do that. We also need to kind of do some preparation for the sandbox. So I need to log back into the sandbox as admin this time. The system has some Linux users already in place, some Hadoop users that we just haven't granted access or set them up to have accounts into Embari proper. So via Embari, and again, the demo notes there on GitHub walk you through these various steps. I'm going to create some local users here. We're just going to call them, marketing1 with a password. And again, these are users that do exist and can run jobs. We just don't have a good integration. Now, this is not maybe exactly how we would do it in a production environment, but it definitely works for what we're trying to do here on the sandbox. So marketing3. And like I said, at runtime, these folks are already in a group called marketing. So I created that. I also want to manipulate in Embari. We have a group called views, and views is a group of people that can access the views. How straightforward. And there's marketing1, marketing2, and marketing3. So we'll go ahead and add those guys, and they're in there. That was pretty important to us. And what else do we need to do here? I'll go ahead and just log out of Embari now. We want to go over to Ranger itself, and Ranger, again, the splash page helps you find this logo. This launch page on port 6080, and that splash page lets you know the users admin. In Ranger proper, under the Hive repository that's been set up, we've what's been pre-built is this notion of a wide open Hive global tables allow. So there's a pretty exhaustive policy, and we'll see the screen in a minute again, that's set in place that we want to disable. So that way we can put some restrictions in place. It kind of notes kind of tell you disable this to do some real testing with Ranger. So we'll go ahead and lock that down and force that to occur. All right, so I think that gets us through the the base drop of setting everything up. And if we want to really verify that's the case, we could go back over to Embari, and this time we'll log in as marketing one, that user that's in marketing one. Password was password. There we go. And then from here, oh, this person doesn't have any views at all. So I guess I messed up here. I'll put pause and go back and see what I did wrong real quick here. Yeah, I did a little quick research. I'm back in Embari, logged in as admin, and for some reason I did not persist. So, oh, I see what it was. So I'll do it again. Marketing 1, marketing 2 is what I did earlier, marketing 3, and to persist it, I forgot to check the little blue box over there. So there we go. We saved it. So now we should be able to verify that our totally locked down rules are in place. At least we want to get in the Hive, which we were preventing ourselves to do. So there we go. We can see some views. We'll see the Hive view proper. So again, we're marketing 1. And what's interesting, if you look real hard and I click on default, no tables are showing up here, which tells us that in all reality, we probably can't see much at all. So if I did like a show tables and ran that, I believe that's going to show up empty, an empty list. There it is, nothing. And then we can just truly verify it and try to run a select signal. So select all from, I think it's geolocation, yeah, no S. And then we'll just limit it to 5 just in case it does work. And I expect that to fail. And oh, there it is. If you look really closely, we say we have a permission denied from user marketing 1, and we don't have select privilege on basically the default database geolocations table, and then these columns, city, blah, 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 blah. And that message usually disappears pretty fast. Those messages are always maintained in here in the list of messages as well. So that's not great, but that's exactly what we expected. I'll log out of marketing 1. So we did verify that our base level setup's in place. We have accounts that logs in, marketing 1, 2, 3. They belong to the marketing department. The databases are locked down hardcore. So what we're going to do now is create our first real, just show you back on the GitHub page here. So we're way down here to right here. We want to do some table level restrictions. So as the goal says, we want to prevent marketing users from accessing geolocation stage and the trucking stage tables. And the good news is they are already there. But the reality is we want to do a little bit, we want to actually see something. So what we can do is we can go back to Ranger, still logged in as admin, go back into the Hive policy itself, and we'll just add a new policy. And from here, we'll just need to start off and name it something. So let's just call it the default marketing access to trucking. And then we're going to use the default database itself. And then in our case, what we're trying to do is, see, I'll just type it in. What we're trying to say is, do we want to include everything? In our case, we're going to kind of flip it around. So if we say geolocation stage, see if that table finds. Yep, and then I think the other one was trucks stage. Correct. So if we identify those tables, but we flip this switch and say, you know what, I want everything in default, but I want to exclude those two records, those two tables, then that actually helps us kind of implement exactly what we're looking for here. And just say, like I said, limit marketing to non-staging tables as a kind of a description. So we want to apply that to our, marketing, there they are, the marketing group. And those specific users will just fall into the group, but with the users that we log in, get picked up from there. And we're talking about select permission. So there we go. We have this policy that's going to allow anyone in the marketing department to see everything in the default database except for those two staging tables. So we'll add that policy. And the best thing we can do to verify that is we'll go back to Embari. We'll log in as that good old user marketing1, password of password. And what we should be able to do now is we're in the Hive view. We should be able to open up default over here and actually see some. Well, I thought we'd be able to open up default and see some tables. Did I do something wrong? I logged in as marketing1 here. Let's pause a second and see if I did anything else wrong. I guess I just didn't click on it correctly. So we're clicking on default shows us those tables. And if you look really close at like geolocation, that table geolocation stage actually isn't showing up. So just want to check and make sure we can see things like geolocation. Perfect. They show up at the results at the bottom. But if I want to look for the table, because our use case is to lock down those staging tables, a silly use case since it's the same data, but there we go. And I'm going to execute this again with the geolocation stage name. Oh, and there we go. Perfect error message. Same situation. Permission denied for marketing1 on geolocation table, geolocation stage table. I could run the same thing on the trucking. I think it's the trucking, it's a truck stage, I guess, just to kick it off what we're talking here. So trucks. Is it truck or truck? Truck stage, truck stage. Yep, there we go. And that should give us the same. There we go. Big problem there as well. So that's excellent. So the good news is the table level restrictions that we wanted to do are in place. So we got one policy that solves those issues. Next, we're going to focus on row level restrictions. And as I kind of suggested, that row level security is not an intrinsic concept necessarily in Hive, but really what we can do in Hive is we can create a view that it restricts out the fields, the rows that we don't want via a query, and then make that look like a table, and then manage permissions on the original table and the event tables as well. So the good news is we do already have, if you remembered earlier, we created a table called geo location. Oh, we called it here. Let me just log in and show it to you. That might be the easiest thing to do. Log back in as marketing1. We ran a table that we called, I think it was geo underbar something else. Let's see if I can find that for us here. Okay, there we go. Geo normal event. So that was a table that, if you want to see the README, just to refresh our memory a little earlier, we said, let's build a view called geo normal event. And it's really everything from geolocation as long as the event itself is marked normal. So to do that, again, we have that view, and really what we need to do is just modify our permissions over in Ranger. So the good news here, we can just leverage the existing policy that we have today. And in our case, what we're really thinking about doing is just locking down the actual geolocation table, since we have already created the view that's out there. Now, what might happen is you create the view after the event, after a while and that kind of stuff. But it's the same argument. Make sure we lock down the underlying table, and then we make sure we can. And I'll just log in as a different marketing user, marketing2, and we'll make sure this user can see the trim down, the row level access one. Basically, what I'm saying is the view itself. And then we'll make sure they can't see the underline or the back. Oops, there we go. I just have to wait for it. So the view is called geo normal event. And we'll click that there. And looks like that's running. And the results are coming in here at the bottom. And there they are. And for fun, we'll go ahead and click off geolocation. Now, by the fact that I see it over there, I'm a little worried that it's just going to work. There we go, perfect. It didn't, so that's great news. We can, marketing2, which belongs to marketing, doesn't have rights on this geolocation table itself. So the good news is we were able to complete our row level security policy, and there's what I mentioned about if the messages disappear. Just click under messages and you'll have those as well. So I'll log out of Marketing 2, and we'll talk about our third and final use case that we wanted to focus on in this brief demonstration, and that's column level security. Good news is that's very built-in and intrinsic, and the Hive and Ranger clearly understand that. And in our case, if you remember, what we're trying to do is just prevent access to the events and the total miles columns on this table called risk factor. Well, if you did some of the other demos, you'll notice that we have a risk factor spark, and we might even had a few other temp tables as we played around. So what I'm going to do is just simply go back into Ranger and edit that policy one last time. And this time, we're just going to modify and say, you know what, instead of letting everyone see everything, why don't we just trim out the events column as well as the total miles column, and we'll just mark those for exclusion too. Now, I'll have to be honest, by doing that, good and bad, a side effect is that we were able to prevent any table that has events or tote miles as a column name. So this is a good concept for PII data, maybe that you use a consistent set of names in a variety of tables instead of managing independent policies for each individual table. But it's Ranger, you can mix and match and find what is most appropriate and useful to you. So what we want to do is verify that those column level permissions works. I'll go over to Embari. This time we'll pick our third user, Marketing 3, who's also in the marketing group that we granted all those permissions to. And this time, let's just make sure that they cannot, if they try to run, on the risk factor table itself. So let's see if we can find the risk factor over here. Show me some more. Oh, it's right there. I missed it the whole time. So if I try to run risk factor, I actually get a failure because we're being told that Marketing 3 doesn't have permissions on the driver ID. Actually, it says it doesn't have permission on that table. So let's just see if open the risk factor up here a little bit. What if we trimmed out those columns that we know we have a problem with? What if we just ask for driver ID and risk factor from the risk factor table instead of the two columns that we know are a problem? And guess what? Look, query submitted. So far, it's a good green bar. And look, we got good comments, good feedback at the bottom. So the good news is our notion of column level security, very, very, very easy to do with Ranger on top of Hive. And for the most part, that really wraps up what I wanted to show in here. All I would do if you're doing this demonstration yourself to help you with future mechanisms, future demonstrations, I'd go back into Hive and I'd actually go ahead and disable this policy that we created, and I would also re-enable the kind of wide open global one just to help you with most of the time you're not thinking about security, you're learning how to do functionality and learning how to use a variety of tools, and security for that purpose and that purpose alone might get in your way. So that's it for me. I hope this demonstration was useful and interesting. I hope the entire Hadoop Essentials demonstration list was equally helpful. Thanks a bunch.